So let's all thank Lamar, the genocide guy. Lamar Boulevard is one of the most prominent streets in Austin, and many places in Texas are named after him. But did you know he was a massive Indian hater with no chill? He famously advocated for the complete extinction or expulsion of the Comanche, Cherokee, Alabama Cusheta, Shawnee, Lipan Apache, and other natives in Texas. Countless letters and speeches illustrate his extreme antipathy, jingoism, and bigotry regarding natives. He believed that they must be expelled or exterminated and could not coexist with whites. At the Battle of Neches, he had an army of 500 attack a village full of women and children, despite them pleading for peace so they could just harvest their crops. He also sent a failed invasion to take over New Mexico. The Tonkawa inhabited this region and on many occasions helped to track and fight off raids from Comanche warriors in Austin. We also have a street named after them. Yeah, this little one. It was proposed in 1962 to name Town Lake Lake Tonkawa in order to credit the people who helped repel Comanche raids. But this was unanimously rejected by the city council after the Austin American Statesman smeared them as redskins, cannibals, and thieves who weren't wanted. Famous Texan anthropologist W. Newcomb wrote a sarcastic rebuttal saying that Austinites weren't capable of pronouncing Tonkawa anyway or understanding it, and suggesting instead that we name it City Pond. But luckily this land has been well stewarded by the colonists. So should we tear down the statues and replace all the street signs? Well, I don't think so. The city already wildly mismanages the budget every single year, but I think it is an opportunity to publicly talk about what we've done with the land, and if this development and the changes the land have seen over the years are really what we want to see. And the native history of the land is tightly interlocked with that conversation. Lamar, was he an evil guy who just hated Indians for no reason and was super racist and thought that the white people were superior? I don't know. I didn't know him, but I don't think that we can necessarily say that he was an evil person. I think he probably thought he was doing the right thing. You got to remember that the time he'd probably been in battles for 20 years and seen lots of blood and death. He was probably extremely traumatized for all that, and there was plenty of Indian raids going on. Lots of people were dying on both sides. Was he able to take a step back and see the complete picture and see what the extinction or extirpation of the Indians would do? No, absolutely not. He didn't have the perspective. All he could see was what to do at any given moment, and he thought he was protecting the white settlers from Indian raids, and that's as simple as it gets. And the Indians were absolutely killing settlers and doing some pretty horrific things. But I think it all comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of the cultures to each other, really. But one of the important ones is white people were seeing a land that was kind of open and they could just settle, and they didn't see a problem with just going into the woods and staking out a claim and building a farm, putting up fences and farming. And then when the Comanche came and it stole their livestock and killed them, they couldn't comprehend. They thought that that was just them being savages. But from the Comanche's perspective, just imagine this from a sort of Western mindset, which most people have. Say you had a large property, a ranch or something, and you have a bunch of orchards. You have a lot of people that you need to feed, a very large extended family, and to furnish that food, you have a very large orchard. You have livestock roaming around and feeding on the grass, and you've got it all maintained. You've had this land for generations and just got it all perfect, and all the species that you want are there, and it's very carefully managed. And then one day some people just come up and set up shop, put up some fences in your land, cut down a bunch of your trees, and destroy all the grass the livestock are feeding on, and suddenly you're not able to feed everyone the same way that you used to. They're taking from you, from the land that you've been stewarding for many generations. And so you go up to them and you'll be like, hey, well, I'm taking some of what you're growing because you're taking from me. And they protest and they say, this is ours, we own it, and we put up a fence here, so screw you. And more than that, they pull a gun on you. They say, you're a horrible savage and we're going to kill you if you come any step closer. How would you feel? So it's not a far step away from that, from how natives felt when the land that they've been stewarding, which was full of tons of wild game and wild plant resources that they had actually been tending by burning the land for many generations, having nomadic patterns, grazing the the land, or not grazing themselves, but having wild game grazing on the land that they've maintained, and lots of wild resources. And then all of a sudden people are putting up fences, the bison can't have their regular pass through, and so it's all just completely messed up. So they're seeing, you're taking from us, and we're taking some of it back. Like, this is our land, like we've been here forever. Who are you just showing up and fencing off a little section and saying, mine, this is mine, and I don't care what you say. If you try to have a problem with me, I'm just going to try to kill you. Because absolutely, the white settlers would kill Indians on sight a lot of times. So it was just this sort of fundamental misunderstanding of the base of the resources of cultures, where white settlers are seeing an empty, unused land that they should be free to go and settle and fence off, and the natives considering that same land to be the only part of their resource space. That is where everything comes from. Their materials, their food, their medicines, it is all produced by wild nature, which they, again, been carefully tending for many generations, thousands of years, and in central Texas, inhabited continuously, basically, for 20,000 plus years. So I think that's where the fundamental misunderstanding comes into, and I don't think we need to demonize one side or the other. I think that we can acknowledge that there was a fundamental misunderstanding, and it led to serious conflict, and on both sides, and a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, a lot of bloodshed. And what can we do but learn from that and try to have a broader perspective, and try to see, maybe some things that we're doing on the land, or that the natives were doing on the land before settlement, maybe that was the better way in a lot of ways. And maybe some things that the Western civilization has brought is good too. But it doesn't have to be one or another. People always want to say, you're bad, I'm good, or vice versa. Nothing's ever that simple. So I'm not trying to demonize Lamar. Again, I think that he had a very limited perspective, and most likely thought he was doing the best thing and the good and righteous thing. And same thing for Comanche raiders. They were doing what they considered to be the best thing and the righteous thing for their families. So neither one has to be right, but there was certainly a lot of conflict. Well, I've spoken much more on this than I had planned to, but it is a subject of interest, and maybe you found this valuable. All right, y'all, take it easy.